So today we're going to be discussing the concepts of cyber family and data mining and privacy and their societal impacts. Technology has become a large part of our lives, and the way that we communicate with each other has become different because of technology. And a lot of times people spend more time staring at their devices rather than interacting face to face. And there have been a lot of privacy concerns related to data mining. So to begin, just to start off with cyber family, it's a group of people who form relationships through the use of online communication, a lot of times through social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, as well as features on your iPhone such as FaceTime and texting. It allows families to form these relationships that are not necessarily close in geographic proximity. Cyber families also seem to be very common due to people living in various different locations. Personally, my family, most of them live in the Northeast, and I live in South Florida. And the only way I can keep in contact with them is through social media. And so, in that way, I believe my family is a cyber family. To explore some of our video examples, one of mine was from the show Modern Family, which showcases a few different families all related to each other. You have your classic nuclear family, you have an older man that has just been remarried to a much younger woman, and then you have a gay couple who has just adopted a child from Vietnam. So it's a large mix of different personalities and different um, formations of families. So in the video, there's a few clips, and it's basically the entire episode is based online. They're solely interacting with each other through FaceTime, iMessage, and social media. They're constantly checking in on what each other's doing through social media, which really showcases the fact that they are a cyber family because rather than interacting face to face, they're only doing it through digital media. And then there's one clip where the mother finds out that her daughter has changed her Facebook status to married. And instead of contacting her directly and speaking with her on the phone or having a face to face interaction, she decides to go further into social media and check her daughter's location and do a lot of things that um, leave room for toxic, harmful, and controlling experiences within the family. And that's how a cyber family can be harmful. And then I also have a second video example from the movie The Mitchells versus the Machines. This is a movie that's based on the plot of a world that is obsessed with technology. This family goes on a road trip and they want to bond, and then there's an uprising of technology. And if you'll notice in the clip that there are three of the family members who are completely absorbed into their devices, while their father just wants the family to bond without the use of technology. And you'll see in the clip that there's a scene with the family sitting around the table and they're all enthralled in their devices. And the father is saying, hey, let's put our devices away and let's have some eye contact. Once that happens, the family has nothing to talk about because they're only interested in furthering their digital relationships rather than interacting with each other face to face, which makes them a cyber family. And the concept of cyber family is always reflecting the ever changing nature of social relationships, and it emphasizes the increasing importance of technology on relationships. And so I believe that both these examples show some of the positive effects, but mainly negative impacts on familiar relationships. Now we'll move on to data mining with Liam.
Okay, data mining and privacy. It's practically one of the most important sociological concepts that come in the modern society that relate to, new media, digital media. It's an extremely profitable sort of business. Corporations make billions of dollars in it, and it all operates in the background without us even knowing. The first video example that I chose was a cutscene from the game Watch Dogs 2. Basically, it follows this protagonist called Marcus Holloway, and it revolves around him being dealt a punishment and convicted of a crime that he didn't even necessarily do, but he was profiled by an automatic system that flags people for potential crimes. To get revenge, he joins some sort of hacker group and goes through a bunch of shenanigans and crime fighting and et cetera, et cetera. The video itself is a little bit exaggerated because it describes some technology that isn't, well, maybe not publicly available yet, such as collecting data on your children through the use of internet connected toys like baby dolls and stuff. But a lot of the technology is present and is already readily available. A lot of data mining and privacy is based on this, or at least in the video, was based on the concept of the Internet of Things, which is basically when you have a bunch of devices that were not typically used to being connected to the internet being connected and being able to be remotely operated. Say like now we have a Nest thermostat, our cars are smart cars and can connect it to the internet, all that sort of stuff. And great, that's amazing because now we can connect to through our mobile devices and it has more convenience and we're able to use them with ease. The negative consequence of that is that we're not the only ones who are able to control those devices. Meaning that the people behind the development of those devices can also collect data from those devices and use it to their own benefits. And usually, those are included in some sort of term of service, manual, etc., whatever that you automatically agree to without even thinking about it. Like I'm sure there's some statistic that the average person spends about 5 or 6 seconds before accepting some sort of terms of service, and that usually signs you up to a bunch of garbage that you didn't really already know about. And yeah, you could say, well, I could deny that, but at the end of the day, you wouldn't be able to use the service that you want, kind of gatekeeping you from a lot of useful services that people use in their day-to-day lives. A lot of tracking is done not through the sites themselves, or not just by the sites themselves that you use online, but third-party sites as well, through the use of cookies. And while you do your normal day-to-day internet browsing, these cookies will like exponentially stack up and just track you for everything you do. Maybe not collecting sensitive information like banking details and account logins and passwords, but your reading history, what kind of sites you go to, how frequently you go to them, and they build a digital profile on you, which is kind of described in the video, and then they categorize you and sell that data to anyone. It's very scary. More than the average person, I would argue, estimates. This could definitely be ways that people choose, or companies like insurance companies choose to give you coverage or not, or credit card companies. It could probably like affect your credit score in some way in the future. I don't know, they might already do that. Or if they approve you for a loan or mortgage on your house. And it would just be all through ways you didn't know. Or even like the first example, you could that's also like a topic of discussion of preventative security or like measures and stopping crime before it happens and the extent to which we'll go before it's like kind of pushing it. Overall, very scary. And then in a future like this, or just even the modern future, we kind of built up hackers and people who infiltrate systems to be like, or like spread viruses to be the scariest perpetrators of digital attacks and just insecurity. But the reality is that even the companies that we spend our money on and look up to, I guess, in a way, take advantage of us as well. And it's not fair to only assume that hackers are the unethical ones. The second video I chose was about data brokers, and it comes from Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, and basically just a talk show host who goes through the entire concept that builds upon the previous thing I said. Well, not just data mining privacy, but the people who control it and sell that information, which are data brokers. And he basically just goes through the entire topic, explaining it, what's good and bad about it, but mostly bad, and a couple of examples. Like I said, a big issue about data privacy is that the average person isn't that they're unaware that the fact that their data is being mined and sold is that they don't understand how severely it can affect them, and they underestimate how much those companies do with that data. He said in statistics something about 6 or 7 out of 10 people already assume or acknowledge that their data gets tracked, but regardless. Another misconception is that the lists are private and they're only shared between companies for marketing purposes. But a large thing about these lists is that they're readily available to anyone. You could pay like $50 and access it quickly. An example they did was I think it was CBS or some sort of news network. They purchased one of these lists and were easily able to like locate a woman in her own residence and just tell her straight to her face for no reason, "Oh, you're pregnant, right?" Like, we know this, you don't know how, but we do. Um, Details like addresses, medical afflictions such as pregnancy, depression, cancer, sometimes even full names are readily available. Epsilon is one of these massive data broker companies, and I don't know recently, but in the past couple of years, they reached a settlement of $150 million with the Department of Justice. Why? Because they were conducting elderly fraud schemes. Well, that's a misstatement. They weren't conducting it, but they were taking part of it willingly and knowingly by selling sensitive data about elderly people to known scamming companies so that they could take advantage of these people. And they did it for nearly a decade. So to assume that that legal repercussions will scare companies out of doing terrible things is just simply not true. And this data was, of course, targeted. Yeah, a large loophole or excuse that a lot of these companies love to make before selling user data is that they de-identify them before they make these transactions, which doesn't really matter, because the same way that they identify people online before they categorize them is the same way that anyone else, a human being, could identify another one. The simplest and easiest way to do it, let's say like Life 360, an app that many young people hate, was caught selling their data, locational data actually, and it was a major cause of concern. And the way that they try to ease these qualms was by saying that they de-identified the users, like taking out the full names before they sell this data. Does it really matter though when you can see the entire routing and path a person takes from their home to where they eat to where they go to work to the and then back? You can easily pinpoint where this person is. Even they were even able to identify some 60-year-old woman through her Google search results, because at some point you get so specific that you can easily lock in the sort of issues and wants a person needs. And yeah, you can say, oh, this isn't a big deal, even if you want to reach and be like, yeah, but like nothing's going to happen at the end of the day. But some crazy people are aware of these tools, and they will gladly take advantage of them to justify their ends. Stalkers, for example, if you have domestic abuse victims, they'll go out of their way to look up people. And it's not like some of these places are completely like unknown. White Pages is like a super available and easily like accessible site that you can look up any phone number and address or name, and it'll give you a list of it that you just have to pay like a couple of tens of dollars. And a large issue that comes from these this data mining and privacy data brokerage and selling and this whole process is they usually do these things through loopholes. It's not entirely legal, but technically it is, because these these companies will sell their data to data brokers, and then data brokers will sell it as a secondhand market to, let's say, the FBI or the government agencies, so they can investigate people for certain things or get information so they can deport people. And technically, they're not allowed to. These government agencies aren't allowed to get this data directly, which is why they do it indirectly. So they take a loophole from the law and kind of bypass it, which is really messed up. And the only reason that they are continued to able to do this is either that legislation has been in the works to prevent this sort of thing for years, but it's impossible to actually get it through because, of course, these massive corporations worth millions and billions of dollars constantly lobby politicians and send them money and have so much influence in the system that nothing ever really gets done. But yeah, the concept of the cyber family overall, these two topics combined, is really important to learn about alongside data mining and privacy, because they both increasingly emerged during the rise of new media such as social media and technologies such as FaceTime, capability in iPhones, and the social media enhances the experience of the cyber family and created it, while also the same data that's collected through social media is then sold online. Cyber families obviously are now a form of an extended support group that goes beyond the physical. And I don't know, they both exponentially just developed through the age of new media, and especially recently during COVID, because we weren't able to speak face to face. So a lot of the times, even families within their own inside groups were communicating only face to face. Only digitally, especially if one of them was afflicted with coronavirus. Um, and then there's a huge surge of more digital data being made online, so that makes more money for corporations, so that encourages them to spy and sell even more. um yeah. Only time can tell how large the societal changes and impacts will if they're really going to truly benefit society, like, through the convenience or usefulness of them. And will they overweigh the negative consequences? Like, will they have long-term negative effects? We'll only be able to wait and see, because a lot of both of these concepts are actually still pretty new to consider. Would probably only had some sort of prevalence in the past couple 2 decades or so. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed the presentation, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.